Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Today is the 23rd of February 2023, and this is the ordinary council meeting held at our 1 Nicholas Street Council building. We are commencing the meeting at 9 a.m. And for attendance, I see that all councillors are in attendance. I also like to acknowledge we have probably the fullest public gallery that we've ever had since we opened this building in 2021. Thank you. So we have, I think, most of the people here, I think, are members of the Jar Jumper Protection Group. So thank you very much for coming in. I'd like to move straight away to a welcome to country. I've asked Auntie Jill Davison if she wouldn't mind giving us a welcome to country. So Auntie Jill, would you like to come up to the lectern? Thank you.
Welcome to country. My name is Jill Davidson and I'm a traditional elder on the land on which we meet upon today. My tribes are Yuggera from Ipswich and surrounding areas and Cullowhee from Thuggaminda and Yulo areas. The traditional custodians of this land are the Yuggera and Yuggera people. I would like to pay my respect to my fellow elders past and present and the future, for they hold the memories, the culture and the dreams of the First Nations people. I recognise and respect their culture, heritage beliefs and continual relationships with the land, skies and waterways. I also recognise the importance of the young people who are our future leaders. Today I am a local and my children and grandchildren have grown up in this area, so I know firsthand how much these services are needed in our areas. I am 73 years old and I sit on the Cambu Medical Board, Perga Elders and Descendants Board, and I help Devon Creek Mission Cultural Site. I also sit on the Perga Mission Board as a chairperson. I support my children, grandchildren and family and friends and continually advocate on behalf of them when they are facing life challenges, whether it be emotional and wellbeing, health, drug and alcohol issues, housing issues, or are in crisis in general. I have faced some of these challenges in my life and need to persevere and continue on my pathway and journey in life, as I have realised that not only do I have a responsibility to myself, but also have a responsibility to the generations coming after me, so they can believe in themselves and know they can pave the pathway so their lives are enriched and fulfilled. Thank you for inviting me to perform the Welcome to Country. Enjoy your day and reflect on how grateful we are to come together as one while being respectful, reflective and continuing to acknowledge our First Nations people. Thanks, Teresa.
Thank you, Auntie Jill. We're very fortunate this morning to have Pastor Peter Clark from the Beacon Community Baptist Church, who is here this morning, and we're going to ask him to do an opening prayer.
Why don't we pray together? Father God, I thank you for the privilege that it is to serve the people of Ipswich. Lord, we do pray for this city. Lord, the needs are complex and hard, but Father God, you do put leaders in place to actually lead us through these times, and we do pray to you, our ultimate leader. And Father God, I want to pray as the council meets today, Lord, that you would help them in the issues that they are facing. Lord, give them the wisdom that they need to navigate and to lead this city, Lord, so it can flourish. And Father God, I just thank you for this opportunity. I thank you for each person here. And Lord, I pray that this will be a very productive meeting. So Lord, I commit this meeting to you and pray, Lord, that you'd be present amongst us. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pastor Peter. Appreciate you coming in and sharing that blessing with us. Thank you. I have no apologies or leave of absences. I have no condolences, no tributes. Presentation of petitions, there are nil. I now move on to item 8, which is the presentation of an Employee Support Award to Ipswich City Council on behalf of the ADF. I'll just show this here and hand it over to the CEO. Thank you, CEO.
Thank you, Mayor.
I'm very pleased to be able to present to Council the Australian Defence Force Employee Support Award. This award recognises employers that are committed to supporting reservists in their workplace. Together with their full-time colleagues, reservists make an enormous contribution to the nation's security and make a significant impact on assisting communities like ours during disasters. During the rain event this time last year, Works and Field Services Branch Maintenance Planning Technical Officer Jason Klassen was called to serve with Operation Flood Assist 2022. Here at Council, Jace is part of the team that plans the maintenance works with our roads and drainage network. Jace is also a corporal in the Army's Royal Australian Corps of Engineers, 11th Engineer Regiment, 104 Construction Squadron, which is based in Greenbank and Ipswich. When Jason pulls on his Army uniform, he works as a plant operator, and this specialised skill is often required during a disaster. Last year, Jason's unit called to ask for his assistance for the flood clean-up effort around South East Queensland. With 1 day's notice, Council released Jason for 3 weeks to help those desperately in need. He started in Goodna, where he removed damaged furniture and flood waste from homes, loading waste trucks. He was then required in Rocklea, where he used an excavator, front-end loader and skid steer loader to remove tonnes of rotting frozen food from the warehouse after the stock was damaged because of power outages. The valuable experience and skills he learnt in the Army are also transferable here at Council. I would like to acknowledge Jason's colleagues also, who supported him by backfilling a roster while he was completing his commitments as a reservist. As a garrison city, we are keenly aware of the important role Defence plays in our community, and we are proud to be able to support the Australian Defence Force members who are asked to contribute to the community, often at short notice, when needed most. Thank you. Move on to matters of public participation. There are none. So I'll move on to item 10, which is the matter of public interest, and there's one matter of public interest, and that is 1 year on from the flood. 1 year ago, the 80-year highest February rainfall record was broken as 657 mils of rain fell in Ipswich. More than 600 dwellings and 300 businesses were inundated. Livestock was lost and livelihoods were ruined. This heavy rainfall across the Ipswich region through the period of the 22nd of February to the 9th of March led to significant river and creek level rises among smaller creeks and tributaries, leading to extensive and significant flooding across Ipswich and the surrounds. In real terms, families were forced to move out of their homes and find accommodation with friends or family, or in some cases leave Ipswich altogether. Businesses were forced to close or move, with more than 200 jobs lost, leaving a $12.25 million hole in our local economy. The Insurance Council of Australia received claims to the value of $127.2 million, and Ipswich residents were provided with grant assistance directly to the value of $6.2 million. This February 2022 rain event, soon followed by another in May, and has been devastating to our community. The immediate priority for many was the safety and welfare of their family, friends and neighbours, and as a council, our priority was to coordinate the disaster response and then help the community to recover. We joined with other government and community partners to open an evacuation centre, 2 places of refuge and 2 recovery hubs. During the flood, over 400 people took refuge in Council's evacuation centre, a place of safety, support and shelter for not only Ipswich residents, but those from nearby Lockyer Valley, Somerset and the western suburbs of Brisbane. Council poured all resources into collecting food waste from curbsides, including engaging an external contractor only days after the flood, and accepted the offer of support from the ADF. More than 6,000 tonnes of waste was delivered to landfill, 3 times more than usual. There were 4,776 visits to Riverview and Rosewood recycle and refuse centres, supported by Council's offer to dispose of flood-related waste for free. Council's field crews were on the ground restoring roads, filling about 3,000 potholes as the water receded, but while reopening more than 100 roads and bridges. Long after the news crews left, we are still rebuilding our city. We have not lost sight of what's important to our community. We are just getting on with it. We see you rebuilding your lives. We know you're frustrated at times with insurers, builders and government. We have listened to you and you are telling us what you need, and we are doing our best with the resources we have. We are building back better. We are buying back homes. We are redesigning open spaces to minimise the cost of damage when the next flood comes. We are addressing each of the recommendations made in the Ipswich Integrated Catchment Plan and Council's 2022 flood review. The federal and state governments also reacted quickly with a $741 million Resilient Homes Fund, and the first homes to be bought back in the state were right here in Goodna. To date, 536 people have applied to the fund in Ipswich, with 239 of those for a voluntary buyback. Of those, 27 have now settled and 6 homes have been demolished, and more will follow in coming months. There have been 98 homes registered for raising and 104 homes for resilient retrofit. Rates relief was offered to hundreds of flood-impacted residents and businesses as part of Council's flood assistance package, with around 357,000 provided in rates relief to date. The total spend of the city's flood recovery as of the 31st of January this year is $24 million. And as we recover, we are also building back better and more flood resilient for the next time. We've replaced flood gauges that were destroyed, but built the platforms 1.5 metres higher. We have established a real-time flood monitoring camera network to keep our community and disaster responders better informed. There have been improvements made to the disaster dashboard. We conducted preparedness training with both council, community centres and other agencies and networks to build everyone's capabilities. We are better resourced and equipped for both disaster response and recovery. We have provided improved education to the community so that they may be flood ready. We worked specifically with the disabled in mind and those who speak a different language. With our major parks, Colleges Crossing and Riverheart Parklands, we simply did not replace like for like. We are investing in redesigns to ensure we don't continue to pour millions of dollars into areas on floodplains that will be impacted in the future, because we know that there will be another flood and another one after that. Council continues rebuilding with more than 300 community assets damaged by the flooding. These include 169 sections of gravel road, 13 sporting clubs, community facilities and parks. More than 1/3 of the recovery projects have now been completed. That's a total of 143 out of 413 flood recovery projects. As we enter the long-term recovery phase of restoring, rebuilding and reshaping our community, we are restoring our waterways and habitats with more than 5 tonnes of plastics, pallets, ties and metal sheeting recovered from our rivers to date. We anticipate it will take another year or 2 of work before our city can be considered rebuilt. On the anniversary of the flood, Council continues to drive our recovery forward. The community can have confidence that we are rebuilding our city with sustainability, resilience and, most importantly, the well-being of our community as its focus. Thank you. I now move on to declarations of interest on the agenda. Are there any declarations of interest?
Thank you, Mayor. In accordance with Section 150 EQ of the Local Government Act 2009, Deputy Mayor Jacob Madsen, reading from a script that isn't quite right, I inform the meeting that I have a declarable conflict of interest in the following item, item 15.6, titled Ipswich Central Redevelopment Committee's report. The nature of the interest is that I'm a member of the Ipswich Trades Hall and Labor Day Committee Executive, and our building, the Ipswich Trades Hall, is adjacent to the CBD redevelopment works that Council is undertaking. As a result of my conflict of interest, I will leave the meeting room while the matter is considered and voted on. I've got another declaration today. In accordance with Section 150 EQ of the Local Government Act 2009, I, Councillor Jacob Madsen, inform the meeting that I have a declarable conflict of interest in item 14.2, titled Suspected Inappropriate Conduct of a Councillor. The nature of the declarable conflict of interest is that I'm the councillor that has had this complaint made against me, and as a result, I will leave the meeting room while the matter is discussed and voted on.
Thank you. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thanks, Mayor. In accordance with Section 150 EQ of the Local Government Act, I, Councillor Fechner, inform the meeting that I have a declarable conflict of interest in item 15.1, Ipswich Central Redevelopment Committee. The nature of my declarable are my business interests in both A1A Proprietary Limited and Bar Heisenberg Proprietary Limited, both located in the top of town in Ipswich. I plan on dealing with this by leaving the room while the matter is discussed and voted on.
Thank you very much both for that. So one question, Deputy Mayor. Have you discussed item number 14.2 with any councillors before coming into these chambers today?
Sorry?
Have you discussed item 14.2 with any councillors before coming into chambers today?
In what are you alleging?
I'm not alleging, I'm just asking you a question. Have you discussed it with any councillors?
No, I've reminded all councillors to make their own determination and I'd prefer not to speak about it at any length.
Thank you very much for that clarification. Yes?
In relation to the Growth, Infrastructure and Waste Committee coming up later, I declare that in relation to item 3, titled the Worrell Park Lawn Cemetery, that I'm a trustee of the Goodna Cemetery Trust appointed by the state government. I don't receive any personal or financial benefit. I believe that the connection between the two is quite marginal, and as I did at the committee meeting, I'll leave it to the other councillors to determine the matter.
Thank you. Thank you, and I note that you did declare that during the GIW last time. Any questions of Councillor Tully on the matter? Okay, so I move that Councillor Paul Tully participates and votes on item, just checking, I think it's 15 point. Pardon me. 15.1 on the GIW Wasting Committee, because there is no personal financial benefit to the councillor, and therefore a reasonable person would trust that the final decision is made in the public interest. Do I have a seconder for that? Thank you, Councillor Ireland. Any discussion? I'll put the matter to the vote. Those in favour? It's unanimous in the room, noting that Councillor Tully has not voted. Thank you. We'll now move on to item 12.1, which is the confirmation of the minutes of the ordinary meeting. And I move that the minutes of the ordinary council meeting held on the 19th of January 2023 be confirmed. Do I have a seconder for that? Thank you, Councillor Milligan. Any discussion on the error corrections? No, I'll put the matter to the vote. Those in favour, please raise your hand. Thank you. It's unanimous and carried. There is no Merrill minute. We'll move on to the business outstanding. I just want to note to residents that there was a late item published, I think about 2:51 p.m. yesterday afternoon. It's called item 16.4 and it's on procurement for flood damaged assets and reconstruction projects. The CEO has checked with the chair of the Governance and Transparency Committee and myself, and we were happy to have that as a late report to get work going, to have that discussion. So those who are, it was only published yesterday afternoon online, and I think if you go online you will see it's listed as council supplementary for today's date. Thank you. Thank you. We now move on to item 14.1, which is the development application 17522/2021/PDA. Recommendation proposed community use childcare centre at 7001 Grampian Drive, Deebing Heights. And does anyone have any questions of council officers on this matter? Yes, Councillor Tully, who would you like to? He's on leave, but Mr Bowles is here and Mr Simmons is here. Or Ms Connaughton.
Good morning, Mayor and Councillors. Anthony Bowles, Acting Development Planning Manager.
I've just got a preliminary and only one question in relation to deemed refusals. Do they work in the same way for the Ripley Valley as they do for other parts of the city? And if not, how would they operate?
They do not operate the same way. There is no deemed approval or deemed refusal arrangements under the Economic Development Act. The Act is quite a lot more streamlined compared to the Planning Act. Essentially, the decision period doesn't have a end date like it does in the Planning Act. There's a decision period. Council is required to make a decision in that period in accordance with our delegation, but the Act doesn't introduce deemed refusal or deemed approval arrangement.
Yeah, thank you.
Are there any other questions of Mr Bowles? Thank you, Mr Bowles. Would anyone else like to ask other questions of other council officers? Oh, okay. In that case, I'll move recommendation A, that council approve the development application being the material change of use for community use childcare centre, subject to the conditions contained in attachment to this report. And there is a statement of reasons that I need to read out. The council organisation has reached its position having regard to the confirmation that the Department of Seniors, Disability Services and Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander partnerships are satisfied that cultural heritage matters have been addressed through the obligations under the Aboriginal Cultural Heritage Act of 2003. The Queensland Police Service report has confirmed the results of the analysis of the bone fragments found near the subject site of the non-human origin, and the advice from Economic Development Queensland is that they have considered the assessment of cultural heritage matters and they are satisfied that matters relating to cultural heritage have been appropriately addressed and has been reflected in the following correspondence. The correspondence dated the 18th of November 2022 from the Assistant Commissioner, Queensland Police Service. Correspondence dated the 16th of December 2022 from the Minister for Economic Development Queensland. And correspondence dated the 22nd of December 2022 from the Executive Director, Planning Services of Economic Development Queensland. Do I have a seconder for that motion? Okay. Since I don't have a seconder, I'll move a procedural motion. And that procedural motion is to suspend the meeting procedures, in particular 10.2.1 and 10.2.2. And those are a council is required to move a motion and then another council is required to second the motion. And a motion or an amendment to a motion should not be debated at a meeting of council until the motion or the amendment is seconded, with the exception of procedural motions. So I'll move that forward because I understand from many councils they do wish to discuss this, but I understand they may not wish to move or second it. So I move that we suspend those meeting procedures so we can actually move on to the discussion of this matter. Do I have a seconder for that? Thank you, Councillor Ireland. I'll put any discussion on that. Yes, Councillor Tully? Okay. I'll put that to the vote. Please raise your hand if you agree. It's unanimous in the room. So those two parts of our meeting procedures policy are suspended and we can move into the discussion phase. I guess before we make a decision, we'll have to go back to standing orders and look at what the motion is. Okay? I'll open by some opening remarks. Before us today is probably one of the toughest decisions we've been asked to make as a council. From a planning perspective, this matter is relatively straightforward. But from a cultural and community perspective, it is complex, challenging, and emotional for all involved. On one hand, we have the registered native title claimants, the Yuggera people. They work closely with the state and the developer to establish the cultural history of this location, survey the land, and develop a cultural heritage management plan for the broader site. On the other hand, there are the supporters of the Jajumpa protection site, many with us here today in the public gallery, who have strong concerns for the cultural and ecological significance of this site. In our attempts to fully understand all aspects of this debate, councillors have met with both groups and have listened intently to their views, concerns and expectations regarding this application. Both groups passionately believe they are representing the best interests of the traditional owners of this land. However, they have very different accounts of what has taken place in the history of this site. To further complicate the matter, this childcare centre proposal sits within the Ripley Valley Priority Development Area, which is overseen by the Queensland Government. And the state has certainly made its position clear on this matter. While councillors may have a strong interest in the cultural heritage, the state has reminded us that we have no jurisdiction here. It is the state, its agencies and the Cultural Heritage Management Plan that must address on such matters. Council is only being asked by the state to consider the planning elements of this application. Of course, no one in council wants to find itself in this position. We are in between two Indigenous groups, both fighting for a very different outcome for this application. But that is where we find ourselves today. And sadly, whatever the outcome of today's meeting is, one of these groups will be bitterly disappointed by our decision. I'll open up to the floor for those who'd like to also discuss and provide their views.
Mayor, is it appropriate to consider a motion or foreshadowed motion as a result of this discussion?
Absolutely. I would, since no one seconded that motion, I'd assume that when we...
Yeah.
Do you wish to put one forward?
Well, I might do that now, and I'll just email the committee clerk
Okay.
in relation to this for the purpose of crystallising the debate.
In that case, I will go back to standing orders if you would like that to happen. And
Thank you.
Okay, I'll see what it is. And if we could show it on the screen for everyone.
The motion is...
Do you want to read it out while
Yes,
the minute
that
clerk?
the email from Artie Chris Bundayawi to the Mayor and other councillors on the 22nd of February 2023 regarding the proposed development application at 7001 Grampian Drive, Deeping Heights, be formally received and tabled. B, that as the application cannot be refused at this stage under the advice from the Deputy Premier and the Minister for State Development, Infrastructure, Local Government and Planning, the matter be referred back to the Minister for his decision for the following reasons. 1, there have been 163 objections to the proposed development. 2, the competing First Nations claims in relation to the property and adjacent land cannot be properly assessed with the sole resources of the Ipswich City Council, and having regard to the fact that no final native title determination has been made in respect of the area. 3, the Queensland Police report of the 10th of August 2022, which was conducted from photographs and not a physical examination of the skeletal remains, indicates that all except 4 of the bones and bone fragments were assessed as of non-human origin, but no final assessment of those 4 remaining bones and bone fragments has ever been made. 4, that Professor David Lambert from Griffith University has confirmed that the only way to be absolutely sure about the origins of such remains is to sequence their genomic DNA. 5, that First Nations oral history is that there was a massacre on and or near the development site adjacent to the former Deebing Creek Aboriginal Mission and Cemetery, and that there is, quote, there is more than a reasonable likelihood that human remains and or artefacts are on the development site according to the formal submission opposing the development table at the meeting of Council on the 23rd of February 2023. 6, that appropriate state government consultation occur with the First Nations people associated with this site to ensure proper cultural consultation occurs, including ground penetrating radar to establish the nature and extent of burials on or near the site, including the examination of anomalies previously identified during earlier tests, and C, that the submission from Artie Chris Bundayawi be included in the reference back to the Minister.
Thank you. Well, I'll move that we go back to standing orders. Are you happy to second that, Councillor
Yes,
Tully?
I'll second that.
Okay. Any discussion? I'll put that to the vote. Please raise your hand. That's unanimous. So we're back in standing orders. Thank you very much. I'm just double checking. I think if that is the foreshadowed motion, or if I'll put that motion forward now as the chair, that we probably need to also state there's some required wording, as you know, as part of the PDO.
Can I just clarify that this is not a determination based on the recommended officer's report, which is the consideration of the application itself. This is simply a procedural motion, basically to refer it back to the Minister, rather than departing from the officer's report.
So because we're not approving, the motion's not to approve it, we are required to obviously inform the Minister.
Yes.
So we'll have to put another recommendation there that council inform the Minister that council is considering a refusal for the application.
Well, yeah, I'm not, sorry, from my point of view, I'm not sure that we've got to that point of refusing it because...
So you're asking for more information?
Well, the motion should speak for itself, and I believe that it does, that it refers it to the Minister. If you look at the first paragraph, in paragraph B, for his decision in the matter. We are the delegate of the Minister or the government in relation to this matter. It's just saying that in these circumstances, these very difficult circumstances, and I'll say a little bit more later, and I echo some of the comments that you said, that we're simply referring it back. We're not making a substantive decision on the application itself.
Okay. Thank you for the clarification. So I guess I'll have for you to remove those recommendations A, B...
A, B and C.
And C?
I'll formally move that.
Do I have a seconder for that? I see Councillor Jonik raise her hand. As the mover, would you like to speak to that, Councillor Tully?
Thanks, Mayor. It's hard to know where this might end. This is a year of trying to give the First Nations people of Australia a voice, and this is an example of where, in my motion, we're trying to do that in our own sphere. It's been a very long and a very drawn-out process. The Minister has made it clear that we cannot refuse the application today. The referral back to the Council specified that if we wanted to refuse it, that we would have to go back to him first. I don't have any problem with that. We're not refusing it. We can't do that today. But the Minister needs to take on board a lot of the issues and a lot of the concerns which have been expressed within our community. And there are gaps in the information so far. The Queensland Police report has been wrongly interpreted by some people, suggesting that all of the bones were of non-human origin. That's not what the report says. And the other bone fragments as well. They've never been assessed. And they were assessed by photographs. The assessment that was made was by photographs rather than physical examination. As I say, I believe the motion speaks for itself, and I would ask councillors to support the motion to make it clear basically where we believe this decision should be finalised in favour of those people who have very genuine and very serious concerns in the community.
Thank you. Can I just please ask everyone the gallery to be quiet as part of our meeting procedures? Thank you. Councillor Jonik, as the seconder, do you wish to speak to it as well?
I did my own research on this item. I definitely don't want to cause any offence to any First Nations people. I'm not an expert in your culture, but when this matter is in front of me, I do like to get to the bottom of exactly what we're voting on. And I guess in my research, the significance of this site goes beyond European settlement. There's, Indigenous stories, and there's been artefacts found that predate the mission or European settlement. And I think that any decision here to be for any development on that site, I know that this is the next step on for that, so I'm kind of going off course a little bit, but I feel that it's just a waste of something that could be so precious and fundamental to Ipswich, and something that we could celebrate together and connect everyone. Such an opportunity, and my knowledge is only this much, but through all my perceptional shortcuts, I can't sit here and make a decision like this in 2023. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to talk? Thank you, Councillor Fichtner.
Yeah, just picking up on some of the sentiment in Councillor Jonik's commentary, and Councillor Tully's have been thinking about maybe adding an additional recommendation to the motion, Councillor Tully, if you'll indulge. And I guess the purpose is to highlight and crystallise the fact that this is a very unique and special place within our LGA. So I'd like to propose an additional recommendation here that, unlike any other location within the Ripley Priority Development Area, the Deebing Creek Mission and its surrounds is an important and sacred place with extra legislative and governance layers, namely the Aboriginal and Cultural Heritage Act 2003 and the Agreed Cultural Heritage Management Plan, which need to be fully and appropriately assessed in an open and transparent manner, which adequately reflects and addresses the extensive community concerns. I think that just adds a little bit of colouring in that regard. I've sent that through to you, Vicky.
Could I suggest?
Thank you, Councillor Tully.
For the sake of regularity in the motion, that should appear as an item 7 before the so as one of the reasons for referring it to the minister rather than a paragraph D.
Yep, happy to.
And if that's
That's
if
the
you
intent.
propose that, I'm happy to accept that as the mover.
I'll just check with the seconder. Thank you. We could put that in as point 7 under, I think, B. Is there any other points? Yes, councillor Doyle?
Just in commentary to my additions there, I wanted to take the opportunity, and I guess we're all feeling it. I mean, this is one of the most fraught and complex matters that's come before our council, and certainly the most complex one that I've dealt with. As the Mayor mentioned, we met with representatives from the Yagara people, representatives from the Jajumba protection site, which did offer some valuable insights into the importance of cultural heritage within this region. But I'm still frustrated by the decision that's in front of us, frustrated by the constraints placed upon us as a council about the cultural heritage matters that we can consider or interrogate when presented with some of the controversial issues associated with this application and in the vicinity of this site. I understand there are processes established under Aboriginal Cultural Heritage Act of 2003 and the agreed Cultural Heritage Management Plan. I understand these established processes mean council do not have a determining role with respect to these cultural heritage matters, but rather this responsibility sits with the state government, its agencies and the agreed plan. I understand that council is charged ultimately with assessing these applications within the PDA. That's not lost on me, but why can't this one be different? When thinking about the complexities, I cannot help but think this important place should be treated different.
Thank you.
We're talking about, obviously, an extremely important place in our city where First Nations people have tremendously significant spiritual connection to their land. I urge my fellow councillors not to approve this application today and support the motion in front of us. To be a part of the dark history of encroachment on sacred sites across our country is not something we should aspire to be a part of, especially in the year of the voice.
Thank you, councillor Doyle.
Thank you, Mayor. When, as a community, we talk about reconciliation, healing, trust, treaty and native title, at the core of achieving this, surely, is thorough investigation of all evidence in a transparent way. Having all bones tested is surely a small and very simple test to put the issue beyond doubt. There is an argument put forward by some that even if the bones, some of the bones or bone fragments are human, where these bones were found is several hundred metres from the proposed site of the Deebing Cemetery Reserve and, you know, maybe within a kilometre of the original Deebing Creek mission. It beggars belief for me that anyone thinks it's acceptable to live so close, in some instances just, you know, tens of metres from such important sacred sites. I'm frustrated and disappointed at the numerous lost opportunities over the years by all levels of government, agencies and some owners to deal with this issue once and for all. We had an opportunity several times over many, many years to declare an appropriately sized area of land, one that correctly reflects the cultural significance of the site and an area that respects and values our First Nations people. We are told that council needs to rely on the established processes of the Aboriginal Cultural Heritage Act and agreed Cultural Heritage Management Plan on matters of cultural heritage. I, like several of my colleagues today, have expressed a frustration that is not part of our decision making. but I want to emphasise the Aboriginal Cultural Heritage Act and the Cultural Heritage Management Plan. Therein lies an opportunity for many in chambers today, and I've discussed this with several in chambers today. Therein lies your action. If you want to affect change, time is of the essence. You need to seek appropriate legal advice and embark on a legal challenge. Therein lies your opportunity to affect change. Sadly, disappointingly, it does not lie within this chamber. I wish it did, but it doesn't. So I implore you to continue down that legal pathway for a formal challenge, because it's only then that we will see an outcome that is, potentially a good outcome that will reflect and preserve the area out at Deebing Creek. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Doyle. I appreciate that, because I know when we did meet back in, I think, October last year, you provided that same advice on the path forward. Thank you. Any other views or discussion? Yes, Councillor Kunzelman.
Thank you, Chair. And I thank my colleagues for their comments. We did sign up, excuse me, we did sign up for the difficult decisions. While there remains any doubt about the findings, there can surely be a delay on the building of a childcare centre. There is no urgency for that, but there is urgency to put this issue beyond doubt.
Thank you, Councillor Kunzelman. Deputy Mayor?
Just wanted to put on the record that I concur with my colleagues this morning. One of the things I've been really excited about is the proposed referendum this year for the voice. I'll be very actively supporting that, and I'm confident our community will vote for yes. Just the unrest in our community, it needs to be addressed. I recognise that our planning officers have done their job adequately under all of the relevant acts that they assess under. But these are matters that are more important, and they're matters that the state principally manages, and I think we need to go down this course of action, because the state does need to be a bit more active out here on this issue and address the concerns that are being raised in our community. I don't know how, as the divisional councillor that has Deebing Heights, I don't know how it'll be a comfortable place for people to live when these sort of concerns are unaddressed by government. So until they're addressed, I think we'll be in this holding pattern, and it'd be good if the state government does step up their act in that regard.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Any other discussion? No? I guess before I'll say a few words, and I note again Councillor Doyle's advice to the protest group and the importance of legal challenges. The Jar Jumper Protection Group, and I encourage you to take legal action. I think protest is a great way to get the visibility, but there needs to be a follow through for any changes with the state. I also agree with the fact that I think the bones do need to be DNA tested. I don't think it's much to ask. It is something that we have asked for. There's a lot of hurt in our community, and doing that DNA test will resolve many issues and hurt, and a lot of hurt in our community. And one thing that our council shares with, I think, many other councils is that we have zero visibility of the Cultural Heritage Management Plan. It's registered with the state, so the registered group and the state are the only ones who see it. No one else sees it. Having greater visibility and transparency of that would go, again, a long way to healing a lot of wounds in our community. I'll hand over to you, Councillor, as the mover. Would you like to say anything before we go to vote?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, and thank you to my colleagues for the positive comments, and in a very difficult and a very sensitive situation. Of course, it's not just the authenticity of the bones and the findings of that. That's only one part of the full examination of all of the cultural issues stretching back many generations on this site, and for many, many years. And I would trust that councillors would support this. the only level of government that can properly assess this is the State Government of Queensland for the reasons which are enunciated in the report. But thank you again, and it's been a long and difficult process for us as councillors, and I hope that the final decision will indicate that we're supporting the First Nations people at Deebing Heights.
Thank you. With that, I'll put the matter to the vote. Those in favour of recommendation A through to C, raise your hand. It's unanimous and carried. Thank you.
Move that we take a 15-minute break.
Actually, it's probably close to much. I'll do a 15. Do you want to move a 30-minute break?
Yeah, thank you.
A 30 break. We'll put that to the vote. Those in favour, please raise your hand. That's unanimous and carried. We'll be back at 10. Thank you. At 10. Thank you very much. It's 10:20. We've come back from an adjournment. We're on to now item 14.2, which is suspected inappropriate conduct of a councillor. And
As a point of order, Mayor, I'll be leaving the room.
thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. Thank you. We have some recommendations there, but obviously it's something we'll have to discuss. I think the first thing we need to do as this is to resolve how to investigate the matter referred from the OIA. So I'm open to discussion. I know Councillor Fechner, you asked for this matter to come to the council. Are there any decisions on how you'd like to?
Yeah, I think we need to resolve a potential conflict of interest with yourself. So,
Yep, sure.
And kind of flesh that out.
So what's the motion?
1 second. I guess looking for procedural advice as to whether we discuss or whether we need to move straight into a potential motion on this.
If I might be permitted to add, I understand if one or more councillors believe that another councillor has a conflict of interest, they're required to raise that in the meeting
Yes,
with the councillor who may have that conflict of interest, so that can be discussed generally, if necessary, and a decision made after that about the way to before looking at the substantive merits of the matter.
Correct.
Which have to be considered today.
Yes, so I thought we're looking at, I think you said
and-
that you
and
believe
so
I
I
have
guess
a...
more generally, my feel is that that you are an aggrieved party to this complaint, which makes rise to my suggestion that I think that you do have a conflict of interest in this matter.
Thank you. Well, we'd probably need a motion to be put forward so we can discuss that.
Well, I have a motion, but I
Yep.
need to send it to. I thought there might have been some discussion on this matter generally. I think that.
Well, I think before we discuss it, we actually have to put a motion forward.
No, I think under the disclosure provisions that you need to either accept that there is
Okay.
a conflict or advise that there is no conflict,
Okay.
and then that triggers the need to make
No
a
worries.
decision that it is open to you to accept
Yep.
that there is a conflict and leave the meeting.
Thank you. I'll table the advice from the Department of Local Government, which I think has just been sent. As tabled, I have sought advice from the Department of Local Government and sent that to all the councillors last week. This advice aligns with the advice the organisation has also received and circulated to all councillors. It is the department's view and my view that I do not have a declarable conflict of interest. In this matter, I'm one of two referrers. This matter was brought to my attention by members of the public, which my office then put to the council for clarification, as I'm obliged to by state government legislation. It was the council's determination that, and I quote the council's determination, that was, council's media policy has not been followed and I'll need to take appropriate action. Once the council determined there was a breach of policy, I had no other option but to fulfil my obligation under the Local Government Act and refer the matter to the OIA. The department has determined that I do not have a personal interest in this matter. I'm simply fulfilling my statutory obligation under the Act, as every councillor is required to do. I note that the Act provides no room for discretion for any of the councillors. I'll also declare too, Section 150EZ of the Local Government Act states that councillors with a prescribed conflict of interest or declarable conflict of interest must not influence others. And that says, this section applies to a councillor of a local government who has a prescribed conflict of interest or a declarable conflict of interest in the matter. That councillor must not direct, influence, attempt to influence, and that councillor is not allowed to discuss the matter with another person who is participating in a decision of the local government relating to the matter. So I declare that I have not discussed, influenced, or attempt to influence the matter with any of the councillors that are here today. Ultimately, it's up to the council to determine. I'm in your hands.
Thanks. If I just make some general comment, then I'll propose a motion after that. There are three sections of the Act, the Local Government Act, which can trigger either a complaint or a referral or a notification. One is under section 150O of the Act about any person, obviously including a councillor, can make a complaint to the assessor, i.e. the OIA. There's section 150P, which applies to a government entity, which is defined to include a councillor, that if a person receives a complaint, they must refer the complaint, not make a complaint, but refer that complaint to the assessor. And section 150R, which is similar in operation, that if a local government official, which includes a councillor, becomes aware of information indicating a councillor may have engaged in conduct that would be inappropriate, they've got a duty not to make a complaint, but to give the assessor a notice about the councillor's conduct. I'm not sure, in the circumstances, whether it was a complaint. That word was used to the OIA in the documentation that we've received from the complainant, if I use that wide generic descriptor. On the other hand, if it was a referral or a notification under sections 150P or 150R of the Act, they're not actually formally complaints. But I'll just put that in perspective. But I will move this motion, which probably explains why, in my view, that you do have a declarable conflict. And I'll move that Council determines that Mayor Harding has a declarable conflict of interest in relation to item 14.2 titled Suspected Inappropriate Conduct of a Councillor because of her substantial prior involvement in the matter, and that in accordance with section 150 ES 3A2 of the Local Government Act 2009, the Mayor must not participate in the decision and must leave the meeting in relation to such matter because a reasonable person may believe that the final decision may not be made, if I add the words not be made may not be made in the public interest. And the reasons for this decision are, and this is the motion of course, 1, sections 150P and 150R of the Local Government Act 2009, the Act require councillors in certain circumstances to refer or notify certain matters to the Office of the Independent Assessor. However, if this matter was specifically referred to the OIA as a complaint, it must have been under section 150O of the Act, which does not require mandatory reporting. Even if mandatory reporting was required, the Mayor was the aggrieved party in this matter, the outcome of which could specifically benefit the Mayor in the future. 3, this is encompassed in the departmental advice to the Mayor on the 14th of February 2023 as follows. If, however, a councillor refers or notifies conduct of a councillor which is about conduct that was towards the referring councillor, then that referring councillor not only has a personal interest in the outcome of the matter, but may also be a relevant witness in the matter. And secondly, from that advice, it is a matter for council to determine, but it is recommended that both a subject councillor in an inappropriate conduct matter and a notifier or referrer that also has a personal interest in relation to the matter should leave the room and not be present for the discussion or decision in relation to the matter, including dealing with conflict of interest in relation to the matter. 4, the complaint specified what penalty should be imposed on Councillor Madsen, which demonstrates a clear and personal interest in the final outcome of this matter. 5, in all of the circumstances, the personal interest of the Mayor in this matter and its outcome is considered to be quite substantial and clearly requiring this determination.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for that motion? Thank you, Councillor Fechner. Do you wish to speak to it any further, Councillor Tully?
Just very briefly, my view is that the advice from the department is equivocal, but what's been quoted is that it is a matter for this council to make the determination, and I know in some notifications from, I think, the department rather than the OIA, it talks about this can be done in a respectful manner. It doesn't have to be confrontational, and that's sort of my view, but it needs to be done in a proper and a legal way. I'll just say that hopefully this matter can be determined and resolved quickly today.
No, thank you. I guess speaking to it, I'm not used to reporting or on a councillor. So whether I use, and I'm not a lawyer, so I did use the word complaint. When I found out when I spoke to the local government, I should have used the word referred. So that's on me. But look, ultimately it's up to you guys. So I don't have anything else to add except for the department held the view that I don't have a personal interest, and you know that I outlined the entire argument to them. Anyone else would like to speak to it? In that case, I'll hand over to you, Councillor Tully, as the right of reply. Is the mover?
Just very, very briefly, I note that the department used in their response about the situation, they say on the information provided, but again, the second paragraph makes it clearer that that's all of the circumstances need to be considered at the same time in the to come to a conclusion, a proper conclusion about what how the matter should be dealt with, both in relation to the complainant, the complainee, if that's a proper English term, and by the council as we proceed.
Yeah, and you know by the attachments that they were given everything. So I'll put the matter to the vote. Those in favour of recommendation of the, is it 1 to 5? Please raise your hand. Thank you. It's unanimous and carried. Thank you very much.
I'll move that Councillor Milligan take the chair. Yeah.
All in favour?
Hang on. That's usually done by the CEO.
Oh, okay.
That's conducted by the CEO, I believe.
Sorry, Councillor Tully?
I've moved that Councillor Milligan be appointed as to the chair, take the chair. It's been seconded, and I think you usually, it's not the mover of the motion that conducts that vote.
Vote. Would all councillors like to vote then, please, whether they support that? Thank you. The motion is passed. So resume the chair, Councillor Milligan, yes?
Just would like to make a...
Yeah, I think I'll make one, just to be on the safe side.
In accordance with Section 150 EQ of the Local Government Act 2009, I, Councillor Nicole Johnnick, inform the meeting that I may have a declarable conflict of interest in item 14.2 titled Suspected Inappropriate Conduct of a Councillor. The nature of the declarable conflict of interest is that I have had discussions with Councillor Madsen in relation to...
The chair, I'm not sure where this is heading, but I think probably from the chair, people need to be advised that in what statements they make, they need to be careful that it doesn't comprise a criminal offence.
You can't.
I'm not shy in stating that I have had complaints made against me in the past, and I have shared views publicly on this, and I've also shared views of the toil that it takes on me with Councillor Madsen.
Sorry, Chair, if I may.
Yep.
And
Councillor
so, Councillor Johnnick, you're concerned that there would be a perceived conflict given events that have occurred both personally for you and others.
Have you discussed the merits of this case rather than the generalities of how you felt with the...
It's the generalities of the unfairness that I felt, not the
I'll move that having regard to, if this is the appropriate wording, having regard to the nature of the discussions of a general nature rather than the specifics of the matter before council today, that Councillor Johnnick be permitted to remain in the meeting, discuss and vote on the matter.
Do I have a seconder? Thank you. Councillor Ireland. Any further discussion on that?
Just confirming you weren't
No.
speaking about the matter that's in front of us today when talking to Councillor Madsen about complaints made.
No, it was more of a broader whinge.
Support.
Oh, hang on, we've got to deal with this one.
Okay.
Well, you're speaking on that one.
Okay.
So, no further discussion? No? All right, I'll put the motion. Those in favour? It's Unanimous and carried, other than Councillor Johnnick didn't. I assume you're not voting on the matter? Yeah. Councillor Ireland.
Section 150 EQ of the Local Government Act 2009, I wish to inform the meeting that I have a declarable conflict of interest in item 14.2, titled Suspected Inappropriate Conduct of a Councillor, in that Deputy Mayor and I were both in the photos and made comments. I didn't realise the OIA had 2 complaints against me until I got the letter saying everything was dismissed, so it was a bit of a shock. But I invite the other councillors to determine if I can continue to participate in the decision process.
Chair, can I clarify the full nature and extent of the determination by the OIA in respect of the matter in relation to you?
They said that I had nothing to answer because I didn't mention council or funding.
I will move that that Councillor Ireland does not have a declarable interest. The council considers that she doesn't have a declarable interest. She'd be permitted to stay, and including the discussion and the vote on the matter. If there's a second, I'll just explain that a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Councillor Johnnick, seconded.
I think we.
Yeah, open for discussion.
I think we need to clearly identify the different situation. You know, even though there was at one point in the whole matter, one point where issues coalesced with you and Councillor Madsen, but you know, you've been separated from that by a clear decision of the OIA that you hadn't transgressed anything. So I don't see any problem in you continuing in this matter, and that's why I've moved that motion.
Okay. Any further discussion? No, then I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Unanimous and carried. Of course, you're not voting on the matter, Councillor Ireland. Thank you. Any further declarations?
I think, and it's subject to advice, that we're now in a position to proceed with the consideration of the matter. Yes, I will move, and I'm not sure if Vicky's got this. I've got so much stuff. That Council, having considered the matter regarding Councillor Madsen, referred from the Office of the Independent Assessor, OIA, to the Council's Chief Executive Officer, the CEO, on the 21st of December 2022, decides as follows. 1, in accordance with, sorry, if I could just give a preamble, this is the preliminary threshold of how we're going to deal with the matter rather than the substance of the issue.
Okay, yes.
1, in accordance with section 150 AFB of the Local Government Act 2009, the Act, the Council decides that the matter should be investigated on the basis of the information which has been provided to councillors in respect of this matter. 2, in accordance with section 150 AF3 of the Act, the reason for such decision is that given the nature and circumstances of the 2 complaints or information to the OIA in respect of such matter, the Council considers that it has sufficient information to properly decide the matter without prejudice to the rights of Councillor Madsen or any other person. Can you circulate and give one to the CEO and the ones up there too, please? I'll get that circulated too. I don't think...
Sorry, one to the CEO?
and the Chair and the committee clerk. Thanks. If I could just explain that, Chair.
Yes, go ahead, Councillor Tolley.
There is, if you look at section 150 AF of the Act, there's a requirement for the Council to consider how it will deal with what they call the investigation, and it doesn't need necessarily need a separate third party. Council can decide to have the investigation, and that's a very broad word, in any manner in which it seeks fit. But in making that decision, it must give reasons for that decision. and that's why it's broken up. This is before considering the actual matter itself, obviously. The Act says 152A2, 2AB says we can deal with it in any other way the local government by resolution decides. And paragraph 3 says the resolution under subsection 2B must state the decision, which is in the motion, and the reasons for the decision. So this is a preliminary consideration of what the process will be before we actually consider the merits of the issue sent to us by the OIA.
Thanks, Councillor Fleckner. Good job. Our internal IT. So Councillor Tully has just described that these 2 points, this matter is to determine that this council will decide on the matter in basic terms. You're moving that, Councillor Tully? Yeah. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Johnnick, thank you. I'll open the matter for discussion. Councillor Ireland.
I'd like to give some background on why we did the photos.
Point of order.
No, yes, point of order.
We're not discussing the merits of the referral, we're discussing the process that we'll deal with it today.
Okay.
Correct. Thank you, Councillor Tully. Any discussion on this matter at hand?
No, just that I agree and support the motion in front of us, that we have enough to go by so that we can make a determination ourselves as a council today.
Thank you, Councillor Fleckner. Any other councillor wish to speak? No? Then I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Unanimous and carried. Thank you. So it has been determined, as described, that this council will decide on the matter. Is there a motion?
Yes, Chair, I do have a motion. I'm not sure I've got it in an electronic format, but I've got copies of this which I'll ask be handed around to all councillors and the 3 persons at the front, including the CEO. It's I'll say, just before moving it, just as a short preamble, that this is the consideration of the actual issue by council. Now, the council is obliged to decide under section 150AG whether or not the councillor is engaged in inappropriate conduct or the councillor has engaged in inappropriate conduct. Curiously, there's no requirement in section 150AG for council to give reasons for its decision in this matter. But I think given the nature and circumstances of this whole matter, in my motion I've incorporated that for the sake of completeness and transparency in the way in which this has been dealt with. But if the council was inclined to, it certainly certainly got obligations if it finds that there was inappropriate conduct, but not if there wasn't. So I'll just, for the purpose of persons watching this needs to be, it's not available for them to see, is it, no, at this moment? Okay.
I would suggest you would need to read it out, yes. Councillor Tully.
I'll move A, that having investigated such matter and in accordance with section 150AG 1A of the Local Government Act 2009, the council decides that Councillor Madsen has not engaged in inappropriate conduct on the following grounds A to F. A, that Councillor Madsen had the right to make the reported comments in accordance with section 21 of the Human Rights Act 2019, which states freedom of expression. 1, every person has the right to hold an opinion without interference. 2, every person has the right to freedom of expression, which includes the freedom to seek, receive and impart information and ideas of all kinds, whether within or outside Queensland, and whether A, orally, B, in writing, or C, in print, or D, by way of art, or E, in any other medium chosen by the person. Such right is acknowledged in section 5 of Council's Media and Corporate Communications Policy, the media policy, which states human rights commitment. Ipswich City Council has considered the human rights protected under the Human Rights Act 2019 when adopting and or amending this policy. When applying this policy, Council will act and make decisions in a way that is compatible with human rights and give proper consideration to a human right relevant to the decision in accordance with the Human Rights Act 2019. B, that Councillor Madsen was speaking in his proper divisional role and his statutory citywide councillor role, having regard to sections 12.1 and 12.6 of the Act, which state, 1, a councillor must represent the current and future interests of the residents of the local area. 6, when performing a responsibility, a councillor must serve the overall public interest of the whole local government area. C, that Councillor Madsen's comments were consistent with paragraph A of section 2, purposes and principles of the media policy, which states inter alia, the purpose of this policy is to ensure councillors have fair and equitable opportunity to engage with the community about divisional, committee and other community matters through Council's external communications networks, recognising the citywide role and responsibilities of all councillors under section 12 of the Local Government Act 2009. D, that the comments made by Councillor Madsen were permitted pursuant to paragraph 6 of section 6 scope of the media policy, which states inter alia this policy does not preclude councillors from making their own statements or comments which may conflict with council's position, ensuring that their comments are not portrayed by them as the official view of council. Councillor Madsen's comments did not conflict with any council position, indeed they supported it, nor did he attempt to portray them as the official view of council, except insofar as they were previously authorised by council. Councillor Madsen's comments related to two planned bridge upgrades situated in his division which were not citywide projects. The letter from the Office of the Independent Assessor of the 21st of December 2022 to the CEO states that the relevant committee for federal funding for bridge upgrades is alleged to be the Growth, Infrastructure and Waste Committee, but there is nothing in the adopted terms of reference of the GIW Committee which states that this is correct. In the OIA letter, it is further alleged Councillor Madsen should have referred any request for a media statement to the ICC's media team, but there is nothing in the media policy which requires this. The OIA letter further states Councillor Madsen has asserted that the appropriate committee for grants is the Governance and Transparency Committee according to its delegated authority, and refers to the 30th of June ICC media report, which was already in the public domain. His comments in Ipswich News Today of the 14th of October 2022 and the Ipswich Tribune of the 21st of October 2022 simply repeat official statements in June 2022 and reflect the inherent right of councillors to provide factual information to the media and the public about any decision already made by council. Any other interpretation would prevent an individual councillor except the mayor and relevant committee chairperson from ever publicly disclosing a council decision or a resolution of any kind, even if it were in the official minutes of the council and or in the public domain. The official council media statement of the 30th of June 2022 headed Division 1 highlights urban and rural areas reap benefits in the 2022-2023 budget stated inter alia the following singular comment from Councillor Madsen. The rural road network in Division 1 is also set to benefit from several projects. This includes more than $4.6 million towards timber bridge replacements at Calvert and Ebenezer, and $150,000 to design and upgrade to Grandchester Mount Mort Road. As reported in Ipswich News Today on the 14th of October 2022 and local Ipswich News on the 21st of October, Councillor Madsen made the following comments. The Ipswich City Council 2023 budget included more than $4.6 million in council funding for these essential upgrades, and this federal government contribution will ensure the projects can go ahead. Unequivocally, Councillor Madsen was simply repeating his approved comment of the 30th of June 2022, which related to his Division 1, which the OIA accepts as within the scope of the media policy. Preventing a councillor from simply stating or repeating details of a decision already made by council would be a bizarre and unintended interpretation of the council media policy. E, that notwithstanding any other provisions of the media policy, The comments made by Councillor Madsen were at all times completely protected by the overarching provisions of paragraph 7 of section 6 of the media policy, which state, nothing in the policy shall be interpreted as affecting the right of individual councillors to raise or comment on issues of public importance or significance to them and to speak about such matters as elected representatives of the local community or in some other capacity. In this regard, Council restates its policy objective of paragraph 7 of section 6 of the media policy of recognising the fundamental and overriding right of all councillors to speak publicly on any issue of public importance or significance to them, irrespective of any other provision in the media policy. This clause was inserted in the revised media policy on the 10th of March 2022 to reflect the overriding democratic right of all councillors to make comments completely free of the strictures of the media policy, thus reflecting the fundamental right of elected members to speak publicly on matters relating to their community. Paragraph 7 of section 6 of the media policy clearly allows any councillor to work collaboratively and publicly with state and federal members in relation to matters of mutual interest and importance in their communities. F. The comments by Councillor Madsen, the chairperson of the Governance and Transparency Committee, were at all times also authorised by paragraph 1 of section 7.3.4 of the media policy, which states the relevant standing committee chairperson will be the lead spokesman on matters arising from their committee portfolio to the extent that these are consistent with the responsibilities outlined in the committee terms of reference document. Such terms of reference adopted on the 9th of December 2021 stated in Section 3, responsibilities of the committee included inter alia grant management. Councillor Madsen also complied with paragraphs 5 of section 7.3.4 of the media policy, which states where a committee matter relates to an issue, initiative or activity principally within or affecting a particular division, the councillors representing that division will also be designated spokesperson. And that's paragraph A of the motion. B, that the CEO utilise council's decision in this matter as a guide to the intended operation of the council media policy based on the issues considered and decided by this council resolution.
Thank you, Councillor Tully. It's a very comprehensive motion.
Could I just, one correction over under, it's on the third page, it says to design and upgrade, this is in italics, and upgrade, this is at the top of page 3. The words and upgrade should be delete, it appears twice. If one of those could be deleted, please.
Yes.
Thank you.
I'll just check with Committee Clerk that that's... You've got that? So, an upgrade. An upgrade, an upgrade. It's just...
Oh, just one.
Yeah. Well, that's being corrected. So, Councillor Tully, you move that motion.
Yeah, if there's a seconder, I'll speak to it.
I have a seconder in Councillor Johnnick. Thank you. I'll open the matter for discussion.
Councillor Tully's microphone isn't on.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Tully, your microphone. I beg my pardon.
I'll just be brief, and I'll just start that again. I'll just be very brief in relation to this. That the wording of the motion is fairly self-explanatory as to the reasons behind the recommendation. I'll just say that in any political sphere, state, federal or local, media policies often will be the source of sensitivities and debates at all times. I would hope that after today, if this motion is carried, we could all move forward without dwelling too much on every conceivable situation that might arise. I have a very fundamental view, and people might recall the reason that I suggested at the time we insert that provision about the that overarching provision of the policy followed the situation in Barcaldine where the OIA was investigating whether it was appropriate for the Mayor to raise publicly issues about COVID and the treatment of COVID without first talking to state officials or people at the hospital or the relevant minister or some or all of those things. I've got a very strong view in relation to public representation that we should be free to speak on matters of importance, and I think the media policy strongly covers that. But there are rules about things emanating from council meetings or particularly committee meetings, and that's fine to have the policy that way. But I don't think every time a councillor was on a talkback radio program or just making a comment online, that should draw in investigations through the OIA. And because of the nature of the complaint or referral in this case, it's not the OIA. They could have decided, I think, to handle it in a different way, but they've referred it to us. And that always creates difficulties in my mind. Mm-hmm. But I honestly believe that this matter is not appropriate for us to consider that Councillor Madsen has engaged in inappropriate conduct. It's very much, in my view, at the lower end of the scale about who was in what picture at any given time. Councillors, in my experience in 42 years, councillors sought their own publicity if they could. And in relation to, as long as the only real requirement would be that if a councillor is speaking contrary to a council resolution, that they don't purport to be speaking as a council spokesperson, that it's that they make it clear that it's their own personal view. And I think that's covered by state government information that's provided to councillors and the way in which codes of conduct and whatever are handled that provided a councillor does that. But I don't think every time a councillor appears in public or is in a Facebook photograph or a picture in a giveaway newspaper that should trigger an investigation. And I would hope that councillors could deal with this today in accordance with the motion I've put forward.
Thank you, Councillor Tully. I see that you've actually highlighted the true intent of the policy.
Well, that's a matter for councillors that have voted on the motion.
That's my
I think
personal opinion.
It's important that people understand these policies can often be interpreted in multiple ways, but I always understood, particularly putting in that catch-all provision, that freed councillors from any of the other strictures enunciated in the policy.
Any other councillor wish to speak on the matter? Councillor Johnny.
Be short and sweet. I think that this complaint in itself is such a waste of ratepayers' time, money and patience that we are subjected to this behaviour in any way takes away our time to do what we're here to do. And the OIA, $3.5 million annually to run that operation. And then the time it takes for senior executives that I've seen in some of the paperwork attached to this item, their time, resources, taking away, like you can see the difference in items on this agenda today. We went from an MCU decision with cultural significance to this inappropriate conduct when a councillor is out there proactively promoting Ipswich. So what's the intent of our media and comms plan? It's to speak about Ipswich, highlight how amazing our city is, promote it with passionate people, and the very principles of our media and comms policy is for that. So I just think this is just a complete waste of time and resources, and I don't want to be gagged by the policy being misinterpreted either. I think that exercises like this will highlight the essentials of the principles that back our policy and where our time should be spent. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Johnny. Any, Councillor Fechner?
Yeah, just a couple of overarching statements about working together as a team and trying to put our best foot forward when it comes to the way that we represent ourselves in the community. Obviously, they're, you know, pouring through the information that we received as part of this pack that forms part of the investigation that we each individually have to undertake and decided to undertake ourselves here this morning. It kind of hits me in the face that there could have been an alternative interpretation of the policy which didn't lead down the path of spending time and resources. We've seen in the pack that there was significant effort from the organisation to try and compile and advice to support the OIA documentation as well. And just thinking, you know, we do work as a team. There are instances where spokespeople do delegate their spokespersonship to others, and we've highlighted that we're able to do that. There was an opportunity here for potentially, if there was a problem, that we could have mediated it. Councillor Tully could have been one of the alternative spokespeople. We know that the Mayor could have been the spokesperson on this particular release as well. They could have gotten together and spoke about what that means to them and offered, you know, retrospective endorsement of Jacob going out and saying these words rather than us being tied up in such an erroneous exercise forced upon us by the OIA. So I hope that this is a lesson that we can work together better as a team moving forward, and we can discuss these issues as they come to us. It is a media policy, it is an interpretation, and, you know, my hope is that we can support each other over the course of the next 12 months to ensure that we're highlighting how all of the amazing things that are happening within our divisions as divisional councillors, but also across the city.
Absolutely. Thank you, Councillor Fechner. Councillor Ireland.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to point out that we had both researched whether or not we could speak to the paper or to the comments that we put on Facebook and then turned up in the paper. We had researched the fact that grant management was the responsibility of the chairperson for the Governance and Transparency Committee, and that in our opinion the media policy said that we were designated spokespersons for something within our division. So we didn't go into it willy-nilly. We did some research before we started. So, you know, it was a bit of a shock to be told that I was also reported. Thank you.
Any other councillor wish to comment? Councillor
Just wanted to make a note that a councillor in Scenic Rim has recently resigned because of 70 complaints that he's received internally generated by his council. And how could his statement when he resigned was, how could he continue in his role adequately when so much time had to be dedicated to fight these claims? And yes, overarchingly, there needs to be governance on how we behave, absolutely. But, you know, there's appropriateness and, you know, these are people's lives. We've got a job to do. And it's, you know, I think it's disgusting.
No further comments? I'll revert back to Councillor Tully as the mover. Do you have anything else to add?
No, there's no other people speaking in relation to that matter. I do thank the people for their comments. It's a very difficult situation, where it does involve personal rights and personal feelings of individuals involved, and I've approached this in what I believe is a professional way to appropriate look at it. I don't support the legislation, never have, that matters of this nature be referred back to councils it should be an independent review. I think there are a lot of councils in Queensland where it's said that because of the close nature of the working relationships and the political involvements, not necessarily party political, but it's very difficult. And I think that's one thing that in the legislation that the state government is looking at, following the review of the OIA, that's one thing they should get an alternative, not to the tribunal, but some alternative way, which we've had in the past of independent groups or that look at these particular matters, free from the people you sit with and work with day in and day out. Having said that, I thank the councillors for their comments, and I trust that the motion is carried.
Thank you, Councillor Tully. If there is no further discussion on the matter, I'll put the motion. Those in favour? It's unanimous and carried. Thank you. That completes that item on the agenda. I would suggest we ring the bells for Councillor Madsen and Mayor Harding to return to the chamber.
Do we?
Sorry, Councillor Doyle?
Yeah, I was talking about moving for a very short 10-minute break. We may need to wait for...
Yeah, sure. We'll wait for those two councillors to return to the chamber and the mayor to resume the chair, and we'll go from there.
Mayor, if I may move for a 10-minute adjournment.
Yeah, I'm happy to go, but if you would like one. How long would you like the adjournment for?
10 minutes.
10 minutes, so back at 18 past.
Sorry.
All those in favour, please raise your hand. Thank you. Thank you very much. We're back and it's 11:21 at the ordinary council meeting. We've come back from our adjournment. I just want to say to the councillors, thank you for the way that you've managed and handled this sensitive matter. And I think this outcome that you've provided has provided greater clarity on council's media and communications policy, and I think we will all welcome that. We now move on to the reception and consideration of committee reports. The first one is the report of the Growth Infrastructure Waste Committee report of the 9th of February. The only decision that was made under delegation on that particular committee report was the DA for the proposed use of the childcare centre at Grampian Drive, and that was to move to today's council meeting. All other matters are to be adopted. So I'll move that recommendation that council adopt the report of the Growth Infrastructure Waste Committee of the 9th of February. Do I have a seconder for that? Thank you, Councillor Tully. Any discussion on that matter, on that report? Nope. In that case, I'll put the matter to the vote. Those in favour, please raise your hand. Thank you. It's unanimous and carried. Move on to item 15.2, which is the report of the Governance and Transparency Committee of the 9th of February 2023. I'll hand over to the Deputy Mayor as the Chair. How would you like that report managed?
I just refer to the recommendations as per today's meeting agenda, and happy to move that.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. Do I have a seconder for that? Thank you, Councillor Milligan. Any discussion on that report? No, in that case I'll put the matter to the vote. Those in favour, please raise your hand. It's unanimous and carried. Now move on to item 15.3, which is the report of the Economic and Industry Development Committee of the 9th of February 2023. I'll hand over to the Chair, Councillor Jonik. How would you like that report managed?
Just want to accept the recommendations of that committee and just highlight the great thing that was in that committee through event sponsorships with Ipswich Cup and our quarterly event sponsorships with some great local sport events, and also the federal budget submission on behalf of Council as well.
Thank you, Councillor. Do I have a seconder for that? Thank you, Councillor Ireland. Any discussion? I agree. I think it's great to see that councils continue to support the Turf Club, and as well as other events such as the Australian Skateboarding Community Initiative and Queensland Basketball Comp as well. I'll put the matter to the vote. Those in favour, please raise your hand. Thank you. It's unanimous and carried. We'll now move on to item 15.4, which is the report of Environment and Sustainability Committee of the 9th of February. I'll hand over to the Chair, Councillor Milligan. How would you like this report managed?
Thank you, Chair. Although I do note that the sequence of the minutes is out of normal sequence. Yeah, okay. And we won't make a point of that. No, we'll just deal with it. Chair, I move that Council adopts the report of the Environment Sustainability Committee meeting number 1 of 2023.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Ireland. Any discussion on that? Nope. I'll put the matter to the vote. Those in favour, please raise your hand. Thank you. It's unanimous and carried. We now move to the report of the Community, Culture, Art and Sports Committee of the 9th of February. I'll hand over to the Chair, Councillor Fechner. How would you like this report managed? Thank you. Do I have a seconder for that? Thank you, Councillor Kunzelman. Any discussion?
I think that there was only one, I guess, point of clarification that we made throughout the committee a couple of weeks ago, where we were talking about the resourcing that Council had previously allocated to the Active Ipswich Alliance, and just clearing up some governance there in terms of allocating those resources, and my appointment to the Obesity Advisory Group as an alternative way to have a more succinct group of what would normally be the same people attending both meetings. So to save the time of those members in our community who believe in progressing this cause, we decided to make the decision to take those resources from the Active Ipswich Alliance, kind of wind that up and put it into the Obesity Advisory Group. Apart from that, we had our library's report card, which is always glowing, and usage is up across the city, which is a wonderful thing to see. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fechner. Great to see our red tape reduced and the numbers of our libraries keep going up. Any other discussion? I'll put the matter to the vote. Those in favour, please raise your hand. That's unanimous and carried. We'll now move on to the next one, which is 15.6, the report of the Ipswich Central Redevelopment Committee of the 9th of February. Thank you. I'll hand over to the chair of that committee, Councillor Doyle. How would you like this report managed?
Thank you, Mayor. I move that Council adopts a report of the Ipswich Central Redevelopment Committee of the 9th of January 2023.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Ireland. Any discussion on the matter?
Thank you, Mayor. Not specifically on any of the reports that came before committee, but just a general comment that very obviously the development and construction is underway on the events building on the corner of Allenborough and Brisbane Street. So that's really, really exciting, and looking forward to sharing some plans and further details very shortly.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Any other discussion? I'll put the matter to the vote. Those in favour, please raise your hand. It's unanimous and carried. Thank you. I'll just wait for, thank you. Thank you. We now move on to officers' reports. So item 16.1 is the CEO's organisational performance report for January 23. Would anyone like to ask the CEO any questions in regards to this report? No, in that case, I will move the report. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Fechner. Any discussion? I just note the progress on the demolition of the Ipswich houses when it comes to the flood buyback and the incredible workload that Council's taking on top of that, and thank the state and the federal governments for funding that. Also note the approach we're taking to the recovery of Colleges Crossing Recreation Reserve and the River Hart Parklands, because our community do want them back, so thank you for that update. And great to see another milestone for Nicholas Street Precinct with the opening up of Tulma Walk as well. If there's no other discussion, I'll put
I just want to...
sorry, Councillor Fechner.
Just put on the record, once again, thanks to the team in PRS who's leading the charge on the new planning scheme. Really exciting times, some tight time frames, and they're turning around some high quality work for us. We met as a group with the team as councillors, and the work that they're doing is huge, significant, and a really wonderful achievement. So please pass on our thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Fechner. Yes, did you? No? I'll put the matter to the vote. Those in favour, please raise your hand. It's unanimous and carried. We come to item 16.2, which is the procurement of Oracle licences. Does anyone have any questions of the relevant council officer? No? In that case, I will move that. Do I have a seconder? Thank you. Councillor Kunzelman. I guess we're looking at potentially, up to $5 million over 5 years for the Oracle licences. Would anyone like to discuss this? I've spent a great deal of time reviewing and sending questions off to the CEO, but any discussion? No, in that case, I'll put the matter to the vote. Those in favour, please raise your hand. Thank you. It's unanimous and carried. Come to item 16.3, which is the monthly financial performance report for January. Does anyone have any questions for the relevant council officer on this matter? No? Then I'll move it. Do I have a seconder for that? Thank you, Councillor Ireland. Any discussion? I guess I note, CEO, the organisation managing the cost of supplies and managing the overs and unders. I appreciate that monthly review. Okay, I'll put that to the vote. Those in favour, please raise your hand. Thank you. It's unanimous and carried.
Now, point of order, Mayor.
Yeah, sorry.
I don't believe Councillor Kunzelman voted.
Oh, sorry. I thought I saw
Okay, you were very quick.
She is quick draw McGraw. But thank you. If anyone ever spots that, thank you, Deputy Mayor. On to our last item, which is the late matter, which is the item 16.4 on the procurement, parks and facilities, the flood damaged assets and reconstruction project. Would anyone like to ask the relevant council officers any questions on this? I think, CEO, would you like to make a statement?
Thank you, Chair. Just unfortunately, just to advise of a correction that we need to make to recommendation A, where unfortunately we've omitted the tender number. It is in the supporting documentation, but not in the recommendation. So could we please insert in recommendation A, after tender number, the numbers 20067? Thank you, and apologies for that.
Thank you very much, CEO. I'll move this report. Is there a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Fechner. I'll move into discussion. And just for myself, and I guess for us, there is a list here of, I guess, 26 projects, and we're looking at, rather than waiting for the money from QRA to proceed, and I guess we'll manage the cash flow of as the money comes in. I know QRA have been very quick on many other things, and I know they're looking after the whole state. So I think this is a good compromise so we can get a lot of these sporting facilities and parks up to scratch ASAP. So thank you very much. Any other discussion? Nope. I'll put the matter to the vote. Those in favour, please raise your hand. Thank you. It's unanimous and carried. Any notices of motion? Nope. Questions on notice? No. In that case, I'll declare the meeting closed at 11:33. Thank you very much.